got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it.
Biggie.
Uh-huh. This goes out to you. This goes out to you.
Welcome in, James, aka MTG Biggie here. Thought I'd try something different for the channel and different from what a lot of people are doing with deck techs. I thought I'd try to do it live with the actual deck I have in front of me. This is Legacy Death and Taxes. I'll start off by going through the core 4 of creatures. Absolutely essential for the deck. Every Death and Taxes build you're going to see is going to have 4 of the following creatures. We're going to start with Mother of Runes as your sole 1-drop creature. Allows you to protect your other creatures, force through damage if needed, blanks a lot of removal in the format. Absolutely essential for Death and Taxes. Moving on to the main 2-drops. We have Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, 2/1 first strike for 2 mana. Makes everybody's non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Your opponent is likely going to be trying to brainstorm, or ponder, or cast spells like that. 2 mana brainstorm is a lot worse than 1 mana brainstorm. Absolutely essential for the deck. Kind of what holds the deck together, because your game plan is to beat them down with annoying 2-powered creatures and kind of stall their game plan as long as possible for yourself to be able to force through the final damage and win. The other key 2-drop to the deck, Stoneforge Mystic, allows you to search for an equipment out of your library and put it into your hand, and then you could cheat that equipment into play at instant speed through her second ability. We have an equipment package of Batter Skulls, Sword of Fire and Ice, and Umuzai's Jite. I'll go over a little bit more later. Very important. Allows you to have a flexible game plan, which is really important in this deck. The other 4 of creature, very important in the deck, is Flicker Wisp. Kind of quietly one of the best creatures in the deck. Allows you to have all sorts of lines of play that protect your things, remove their threats temporarily. Very good with some other creatures, has a lot of synergy within this deck. I'll explain a little bit later as we move on to some other creatures how it works out. Another key creature in the deck that we're playing as a 3 of is Phyrexian Revoker. 2 mana, 2/1. It enters the battlefield, you name a non-land card. And then activated abilities of that card cannot be activated. Up until this week, Sensei's Divining Top was one of the biggest targets in the format for this card. Liliana of the Veil is a great target. Deathrite Shaman. Anything that they need to turn on and activate to move their game plan forward, you're able to brick wall them with this guy. With Mother of Runes protecting it, really allows you to play this sort of really annoying, unstoppable game. Very good in the deck. 3 of is great. Every now and then you play a matchup where you don't have a lot of targets for it, so it's not a 4 of, but still very effective. Moving on, there's some more utility creatures. Recruiter of the Guard is a new addition to the deck as a 2 of at the moment. I've experimented with 3. Still very good. Allows you to basically go and tutor out any of your creatures, any of your threats. Insanely powerful to do. Also synergy with Flicker Wisp. You could play Recruiter of the Guard, fetch out a Flicker Wisp, and then you could either play a Flicker Wisp and blink the Recruiter and go search again. You could also Aether Violin, Flicker Wisp to do the same sort of effect. Or you could just kind of go get your 1 silver bullet for the matchup that you have in front of you. There are some sideboard creature threats that this tutors out very well, and just kind of makes this deck over the top a bit more. It was previously sort of a tier 2 deck. I think this card and our next card kind of push it over the top. This is the second card that kind of pushes the deck into the tier 1 status. Sanctum Prelate is insane in the Legacy format. Against stuff like Storm, you name 4 if you're on game 1, and they can't cast their win condition. In game 2, you can name 2 or 4, and it really stalls out their plan. Same thing if you're playing against a bug deck with Abrupt Decay, you name 2, and now you just have additional protection for your guys. There's all sorts of things that can be named, even 0 in some cases. Just a very effective, hard to deal with creature for a lot of matchups. Then we have a package of one-ofs that are sort of interchangeable for the deck. Sarah Avenger used to be a 2-of. I've worked around playing with a 1-of. A very good, very effective creature, but the trouble with her is she doesn't get fetched by Recruiter, and she does have some limited range for casting. If Delver is in your meta, very good against Delver decks. Blocks their Delver and trades with it, which is something you want to be doing, or races Delvers very effectively. A good creature, the numbers are flexible. Right now she's a 1-of. Mirran Crusader, I keep going back between 1 and 2 of this guy. Very good when you get it up with Recruiter against bug decks. It's your only way to race True Name Nemesis, just because that card is really hard to deal with. But you can get ahead with Mirran Crusader plus Umezawa's Jite and kind of outpace them. It's sort of the game plan you have to go with if they're playing True Name on game 1. Then we have Banisher Priest, a very effective removal spell built into a creature. A lot of Death and Taxes decks are moving to the Palace Jailer route. Not a big fan of 4-drops in this deck. I like the 3-mana fetchable. You don't have to mess with your Aether Vial to play. Also fetchable with Recruiter as a 1-of Silver Bullet. Very effective. Then we have, going back to the Stoneforge package, we have our 3 artifacts. And Umezawa's Jite, incredibly effective. The only chance this deck stands against the Elf deck, equipping it on a Mirran Crusader or a flying creature, your Flicker Wisp or Sarah Avenger or whatever, anything with evasion, helps you control the board, gain life if need be, and just closes out and makes a really quick clock. Incredibly, incredibly powerful. Absolutely essential for the deck. Then we have Sword of Fire and Ice. Really good against stuff like Delver, anything playing blue, even good against Burn if you're on the play. Helps ping down their dudes. Also, drawing cards isn't something the deck does well, so this always helps. Very good in the deck. And then Batterskull. Batterskull is the way to pressure a deck quick. Fetching it up and cheating into play with Stoneforge is insane. Absolutely got to have your Batterskull. And then we have the glue that holds all of these dirtily creatures together in the deck. And that is 4 of Aether Vial. Being able to instant speed play any of your creatures and slow down their game is incredibly effective. Without this card, this deck doesn't function the way it does. It's the best turn 1 play you can have. It's going to get Force of Willed a lot of times on turn 1, but it's still worth having. There are times you sideboard it out, but game 1, turn 1, this is what you want to be doing. That leaves us with our other lone spell in the deck. We have 4 of Swords to Plowshares. One of the best removal spells ever created in Magic. Basically a catch-all, gets rid of anything but True Name Nemesis. 4 of with 1 mana, so your Thalia attacks isn't going to affect you too much. Absolutely essential. The lands are simple, yet tricky. Your plan, while you're advancing your board with annoying creatures, is to disrupt their mana. So Wasteland as a 4 of, blowing up their dual lands, they're going to have to play around it. It's absolutely imperative that once you establish your soft lock with things like Thalia and Phyrexian Revoker, blowing up their lands and making their game plan harder is the best thing you can do. So Wasteland is great. Same thing with Rishadan Port. Locking down their lands while you're Aether Viling in dudes is great. Absolutely along the same plan with the Wastelands. 4 of in the deck. Completely necessary. Also very expensive. The most expensive card in the deck. So if you're looking to build this one will cost you. Karakas as a 3 of. The legendary land that allows you to bounce your legendary guys back to your hand. So it protects your Thalia. It is also very good against things like Reanimator, as it can bounce their legends back to their hand. So Gristlebrand is a big target for this. Just a very versatile land that makes white mana, which you need. So very worth having. Then we have Cavern of Souls. Against any deck with Force of Will, you're going to want to get your guys out. Naming human is what you want to do for the most part, but there are cases where you'll name elemental or core for Stoneforge or Flicker Wisp. Just a good mana fixer, messes with counter spells, which is very good. That's a 2 of. Then we have 1 Horizon Canopy, which is an optional thing. It can also just be a plains. Just allows you a little bit more card draw in the late game, and also fixes your mana. Just a good utility land that makes white mana. And then, very simple, 9 plains. Could be 10 if you move the Horizon Canopy out, but you're playing white cards, you need to cast them. Plains is how you do it. That's the main deck. It's a good deck. It's a lot of fun to play, but we'll move on to the sideboard now. Moving on to the Death and Taxes sideboard. We have a 2 of Fairy Macabre. It's just the best answer you can have against Reanimator decks. Anything like that, even Dredge to an extent. Being able to have an uncounterable way to dump a creature out of their graveyard, or 2. Very effective, very good. You want it in your opening hand against Reanimator for sure. We also have Grafdigger's Cage as a 1 of. It's good against elves, stops Natural Order, stops Green Sun Zenith, stuff like that. Anything that's going to try to get creatures in through the library or graveyard, really effective, great 1-drop for the deck. Then we have a 1 of Rest in Peace, good against Tarmogoyf and Snapcaster decks, also against Reanimator. Just graveyard hate, very, very important if you are playing Legacy. Definitely something you should consider having. Then we have a Pithing Needle as a 1 of, basically like our 4th of Phyrexian Revoker, little harder to get rid of, being an artifact and not a creature. Stops a lot of things in the format. Really effective, really good. Just be aware that it doesn't stop stuff like Lion's Eye Diamond. It is a common mistake that can be made. It can't hit mana abilities, but very effective answer to a lot of things in Legacy. Then we have Containment Priest, a very good card against opposing Aether Vial decks, anything Reanimator style, anything that's trying to cheat creatures in. A very good hate bear. Oftentimes when you board these in, you're going to want to board out some of your own Aether Vials. Very good as a 2-of, though. Very important. Also tutorable with Recruiter of the Guard, which is great. Basically means you could board 2 in and have 4 of in your deck. Just a very good utility creature in a lot of matchups. The other utility creature we have is Aethersworn Canonist. This creature is a beast against stuff like Storm, anything that's going to try to chain together a bunch of spells, elves even. It just slows down a lot of game plans. Also tutorable with your recruiters. Another just 2-mana 2/2 that really disrupts a lot of things in Legacy. Then we have Path to Exile, which is Swords to Plowshares number 6 and 7. Good in the mirror match. Good against stuff like Merfolk, any real creature-based decks. Good against Deathrite Shaman decks even. Just a very effective way to get rid of a creature when you need to. When you need to have a high concentration of removal spells in your deck, Path to Exile is slightly worse swords. In some cases can be better. There's a lot of decks that don't play any basic lands, so they're going to brick on searching. Just a very good effective card to have in your sideboard as 2-of. Council's Judgment. Basically the mono-white Vindicate is the one way you can remove a True Name Nemesis in white. Voting for it is not targeting it, so getting rid of a True Name, very important. It comes in almost every matchup. Just a very effective removal spell, a catch-all for anything, Planeswalkers, True Names, like I said, Deathrights, anything that they're going to have, you can Council's Judgment it, for the most part. Very, very effective spell. And then the last 2-of, Gideon, the ally of Zendikar. Though I may be leaning away from Gideon now that Miracles is out of the format, because this thing was the best thing you can have against the Miracles deck. They have a hard time countering 4-drops with Counterbalance. So Gideon was a great clock and a great way to disrupt that deck. Still a very good card. The emblem is actually really good against opposing things like Dread of Night. It effectively counters it, making your guys bigger, not a bad thing either. And also just having an indestructible 5/5 sometimes if you want to clock them quick. So I'm probably going to keep it in, but the main matchup it was good in now is no longer a deck, so it's a little more flexible now. That's your sideboard plan. There are some other considerations that can be made if your meta leans more toward graveyard decks. Stuff like that, you can go a little heavier on that. It's all sort of flexible, dependent upon your meta. This is just a baseline, some number of 15 cards that have a pretty wide range of use in the Legacy meta overall. But that's the entire deck. As I was saying, that is the deck. Legacy Death and Taxes, great deck in the meta. Very resilient, very fun to play, very difficult to play, but also really rewarding finding the specific lines of play for specific matchups and situations in game. I like that sort of play where you have to make a lot of choices and the right choices in the right time in the right matchup. This sort of deck kind of allows you to do that very well. This is your sort of baseline stock list, the most well-tuned, I feel, at this time. Like I said, there are some other options. A lot of people are on the Palace Jailer instead of Banisher Priest plan. A lot of people have tried out the new Thalia, Heretic Cathar, whatever the name is. And then there's some other options too. I've tried out basically everything that goes in the deck or that can be played in the deck. And this is where I've landed. I've given some consideration to the new god from Amonkhet, the white god. The name escapes me at the moment. But again, I'm not a huge fan of 4-drops in the deck. Keeping your Aether Vials at 3 is kind of where you want to be. But I'd like to make another video going over the more in-depth sideboard plan, some of your matchups, some of your bad matchups. Elves is really terrible, basically auto loss for you, and that is a concern with Miracles being out of the format, is Elves on the rise. However, I still think Death and Taxes is a great deck, and if you're looking to play a Legacy deck and you don't want to buy a ton of dual lands, Rashad Imports will cost you, but not as much as Tundras, as Underground Seas, and other duels and Gaia's Cradles and stuff like that. So it's not a budget deck by any means, but for Legacy, relative to the format, it's pretty affordable. Interactive, a lot of fun, and I definitely haven't enjoyed playing a deck this much in a long time. So, if anybody had any specific questions, anything they'd like to see in a future video, that would be awesome. I will do my very best to cover everything within my knowledge. I apologize for the quality looking like it's filmed on a potato. I'm filming on an iPhone 7 in my dank, dark living room at like 2 in the morning. So I thought I would put the content out, worry about the quality later. It's really about what the deck is all about, not how good it looked filmed, at least for the moment. Regardless, I appreciate all the kind words and comments and likes on my videos and views and whatever. It means a lot. I don't know where this channel is going to end up or if it'll end up a big thing at all. I'd like for it to, but every little view, every like, every comment, every interaction that I can have with you guys helps a lot. I appreciate everything, and I'll see you soon. Maybe some more Death and Taxes, maybe some modern videos. At the moment, I'm kind of between decks. I played a lot of Merfolk and a lot of Burn in Modern. I've kind of got bored with them, so I'm moving on to some other stuff. So maybe I'll cover some stuff there. Possibly some new standard stuff coming up after the Pro Tour. I don't want to try to put out any of my random brews and then just watch a pro make a better version of my idea. So, you know, if you want to yell at me for being a filthy, terrible net decker and ruining creativity in the game, that's cool too. I'll totally have that conversation. But regardless, I look forward to the next one, and thank you guys very much. I will talk to you again very soon.